Today, I'm coaching Michael Jesse, and you're going to see me have some fun with the tools that he uses. He simply lays out some beautiful metaphors and analogies and tools that he's using with his clients, and I just turn the tables on him. And I don't know that he knows it in the moment, but we joke about it at the end of the session because, again, it's rare that we slow down and really invest in ourselves as coaches. And this is just a really fun, playful, impactful episode and super efficient. We got this done in about 30 minutes, which I love these little short sessions. So hope you get a ton of value out of this. And here's the episode for you. Welcome to the Restaurant Leadership Podcast, the show where restaurant leaders learn tools, tactics, and habits from the world's greatest operators. I'm your host, Kristen Marvin with Solutions by Kristen. I've spent the last 2 decades in the restaurant industry and now partner with restaurant owners to develop their leaders and scale their businesses through powerful one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and leadership workshops. This show is complete with episodes around coaching, leadership development, and interviews with powerful industry leaders. You can now engage with me on the show and share topics you'd like to hear about, leadership lessons you want to learn, and any feedback you have. Simply click the link at the top of the show notes and I will give you a shout out on a future episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to connecting. Running a restaurant is tough. Long hours, staffing challenges, rising costs. Sound familiar? What if I told you there's a smarter way to manage your kitchen, boost your staff's morale, and keep your operations running smoothly? Enter Restaurant Technologies, the ultimate solution for modern kitchen management. Here's how restaurant technologies can transform your business. 1, solve labor challenges. They automate unpleasant tasks like manually handling used cooking oil. They keep your staff safe and happy while promoting a safer, more efficient kitchen. 2, reduce operating costs. They help you save money by optimizing oil usage and eliminating third-party cleaning services with their auto mist technology. Some restaurants save up to $300 per month per location. Number 3, they help you ensure consistent food quality. Fresh oil means better tasting food every single time. They help you monitor your oil usage remotely with ease. Number 4, enhance safety. Reduce fire risks and injuries by eliminating the need to handle hot oil. Number 5, promote sustainability. Join the eco-friendly movement by recycling used oil into biofuel. And number 6, maintain a clean kitchen. Imagine no more spills, pests, or messy cleanups. The result? A safer, cleaner, more efficient kitchen that saves you money and keeps your team happy. Ready to see why over 45,000 restaurants from small independents to large multi-unit concepts trust Restaurant Technologies? Visit rti-inc.com to learn more. Michael, welcome to the show. So excited to have you today. I love coaching coaches. It's just such a fun, awesome experience. I think everybody should have a coach. I don't know if you agree with that statement or not.
I have 3 of my own, so yes.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, it's just having a coach and being a coach is so important. It just really helps, for me anyway, it helps me identify my blind spots so I can make sure that I'm showing up as I want to every single time for my clients. And because life gets in the way and trying to manage a business gets in the way too, right? So it helps kind of keep me focused instead of being preoccupied on the other things that are going on in life. So love that you're here. Would you kick us off? We're gonna jump into a coaching session, which I'm super excited about. But before that, would you just give the listeners a little bit of insight into who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So my name's Michael, and I'm the owner of Curiosity Center, which started out as a learning center about creativity and innovation and how that process works actually in your brain. And so I dig into a lot of the science and neuroscience behind that. How I apply it is leadership development. Like, how do we become creative leaders? And then how, if you're a business owner, innovate a product? Or how do you work in a way where you see opportunities working with customers? So that's what I really focus on.
I love that. I love it. And how can people get a hold of you if they want to connect?
They can find me at Curiosity curiosityscenter.net.
Perfect. I love it. Curiositycenter.net. Super easy. Okay, we're going to jump into some coaching now. Is there anything that you need from me or anything that you'd like to design before we start?
Yeah. One of the things I often need, and I love asking this of my coaches, is please call out my BS when you see it. So I can, when I get into these sessions, I can call out a whole bunch of excuses and complain. And sometimes I am self-aware that I'm doing it, but it's nice to have that little reminder like, oh no, I can hear that little like saboteur talking in your head. So yeah.
I love it. We are speaking the same language, my friend. I love that. I'd call it a tough love approach, but yeah, if I see you standing in your way, I'm going to call that out. So absolutely.
Good.
Love it. Okay. What would make this an extraordinary conversation for you today?
One of the breakthroughs that I am still working on myself, so is it's that belief of not good enough,
Mhm.
right? However, I have learned along the way life expectations or purpose is different for everybody. And that's kind of what I'm looking for is once in a while I forget maybe what I'm here to help people with. And it's just because a lot of people say, "Oh, Michael, you're so patient." And to me, that's not a superpower. They're like, "Oh, it absolutely is." So that's what I'm looking for is kind of keeping up with that idea that yes, there is something for me to do and I can help people.
What is your mission?
My mission is to help people figure things out. But again, because I can use the science behind creativity, what I see people get stuck with is like, I don't know how to, or they feel trapped, or they feel like they're in this cage and can't break away. Where for me, I honestly have never really had that feeling. So, what I help people with is to really understand that taking in new information is going to be helpful, like the difference between a breadth of knowledge and mastery, and then how to apply that in whatever situation you are. So I do have a friend, he works in a peripheral thinking world, which is not the same as lateral thinking. So you're going to hear me have these conversations about convergent thinking, divergent thinking. So it's just the idea that someone else in a different place is literally going through the same thing you are. And now you just have to understand that how can I reach out and find these people to help me get through the same thing?
You're so technical and you're so scientific, which is awesome, but you just did a really great job of breaking that down. You had mentioned that you help people break out of their cages.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Understanding what does the cage actually look like? Where did it come from? And I often hear people like if they're experiencing either a struggle or even sometimes trauma that they just have to get through it. I work in a situation where you may not need to. How could you go around it? So again, I think more three-dimensional than 2D. Like,
Mhm.
do I need to go over, under, around the situation just so I can let go? And that is what I help people do is let go of the cage. You don't need to be carrying it. There's really no need to anymore.
Yeah. You said that you've never been locked in a cage.
I have never thought I was in a cage. And so when I hear people like, oh, I've been stuck with this situation for the past 3 months, I'm like, wow, that's got to be awful. Like, what is that like? So yeah, I feel like because I grew up always wanting to learn. Like I loved reading books. I love watching documentaries. I am that weird type of kid who just wants to take it all in. And I even love when it's that type of information where, hey, we're going to eat eggs today because it's good for you. No, don't eat eggs today because it's bad for you. So I even love, listening to the comparisons, like what's working, what's not working. And so for me, because I feel like I've done so much of that, I can always look at a situation like, oh, this reminds me when I was bike riding, this happened. Or, hey, when I was a software engineer, this happened. Or again, when I was the bar manager, this happened. So I am grateful for the experiences I've had to help people understand, well, what if, right, you were this type of person? What if you were an orator? What if you were a leader? What if, right? And so the what ifs opens up the mind to new ideas and possibilities.
What if you were someone that you could believe in as being enough?
Wow, that's an interesting question. What if I could feel I was being enough? My confidence level would be so high. Like, if you can think of like confidence as radiating energy, like having something as big as the star, like our sun, would be awesome, right? Like, just being able to pour out that much light would be fantastic.
Let's play with a sun metaphor a little bit. Love this. Pouring out light. Tell me, what color is the sun? How high is the sun? What's the sun doing?
Yeah, I'll just keep to the yellow sun that we have. And it's interesting because if you look at the sun, it kind of flares and it has these kind of feathery moments. Um, yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking in my mind.
What who are you as the sun?
The word possibility immediately happened in my mind. Yeah.
Say more.
It's like it's so interesting. I'm even thinking like what does the morning feel like when the sun shows up, right? You awake, you see this new day, you've got another opportunity to do experiments, try new things, work out on different things. So yeah, the opportunity to meet new people, opportunities to, again, try new things. So that's what's coming to mind for me when I think of the sun, I think of the morning. I do want to work on what does it look like when the sun sets. And so for me, during my evening routine actually is really reflecting on the day, right? What did I get to do? What I was, the word alchemist now comes to mind because that's kind of what I feel like is I experimented, I tried to mix up a few different things, and here's the results of it. But it's one of those things where I have not done this where I do an experiment for the day and I share the results. I write it down, but I have never shared it. And I think that's something that for me, coming back to the good enough is something I probably need to do more often is because I think once people understand, like, hey, I'm struggling with this and this is what I'm working through. And here's some of the great outcomes I've had when I've gone through another challenge that maybe somebody else has gone through. So, yeah, I'm liking this like morning experiment and then in the evening kind of reflect and review.
It's interesting with the sun, right? Because we have the most gorgeous sunrises and sunsets in Tucson, and so I wait for them every day. It's just gorgeous. But in
Yeah.
the morning, the sun's not enough, right? As it starts to
Mm,
rise, the parts where the sun isn't shining is cold. And the
yes.
parts where the sun is shining is a little bit warmer and more inviting and more comfortable, right?
Right.
And then you go through this progression. The sun goes through this progression throughout the day where it's constantly in motion, constantly moving. And then there's a point where it's just shining as brightly as it possibly can, right? And it's just providing value and like you mentioned earlier, pouring that sunlight over a huge population and a large landmass. And then it starts to decrease, right? And set throughout the
Yeah.
day. And then eventually goes away for a while. And it repeats that same cycle every single day, but it shows up really consistently. What's resonating for
And
you when I
what's
say that?
a story that someone had once told me, you don't always have to be on all the time. And what I mean by that is just because from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., I'm not, making the impact I want throughout, all 12 hours. One minute is good enough, right? Like if you could highlight one thing for that day, that is good enough. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that because again, we're coming back to the good enough part.
I Hi, podcast friends. We're taking a quick break to address a common challenge in the restaurant industry: leadership development. If you're a restaurant owner or manager navigating the complexities of leading a restaurant team, you know it's no easy feat. To help you lead with clarity, I've put together a customized guide with 5 strategies for becoming a more effective restaurant leader. Visit kristenmarvin.com/clear to grab your copy and start making positive change today. Now back to the show. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, it is for me a good reminder. Like, I don't always have to be, always making an impact, always like helping people, always trying to reach out more, always. So the always seems to be the thing that I get caught up with a lot, because sometimes, again, not feeling like enough, I'm not doing enough. But then it does come into like, if I can make one person smile today, and I've done this experiment once. You go to a grocery store, you kind of chat up somebody. Like, it could literally be like, I did this with chicken fingers once. So I was like, hey, why did you pick that one? And so we just got into a conversation. I learned so much about that person. And I'm sure that person was like, I didn't go to the grocery store to have a conversation, but this is kind of cool. So yeah, it's interesting that we are talking about, in the morning, you're just starting, you're not having to light up everything. And then you have that peak moment. And then, yeah, you get to kind of rest a little bit and then start up a new day.
When you said you have this, you want to break through this belief of not being good enough, are you talking about in life or in business or both?
Yeah, I don't separate work life. To me, it's just life. My life just right now happens to be in a role where I'm a business owner. So I think for me, it is life in general. And I know kind of when it started, when a parent chose to continue telling me that even though I got straight A pluses on a report card for a year, it wasn't enough. I know that was the trigger. And in my mind, it's like, what could you possibly do that's greater than this? And I think that's been trapped in my mind ever since.
What does life look like for you if you can let go of that moment?
Freeing, obviously. And I think it removes a lid I've always had of, I don't know enough. Maybe I'm not doing enough. And it can be exhausting, actually, having the not good enough belief. It could drain me. Like, I have days where for 2 days, I just will not do anything because I am that tired. Not necessarily burnout, but just mentally exhausted of what else could I do? So again, going back to creativity as like, okay, what am I not getting to do? What trap or what cage did I put myself in now? So yeah, it's interesting that I could just even free myself sometimes from that cage.
That parental figure at that time sounds like your judge. Right? You mentioned saboteurs earlier, so I know you know what I'm what I'm talking about right now. Why is the judge there for you?
I've always heard the story behind never be satisfied, and that came up as well. And at the time, I thought that was a good belief or value to have. Now, going back and thinking about it, there is a value behind not, I won't say not good enough, the settling. Like, I do understand, like, just staying in comfort isn't a great place to be either, but always striving to the point of exhaustion isn't a great place either. So I think for me, just the not settling or don't be satisfied is depends on how it's used, I guess. If like, I see peak athletes sometimes, and I just talked to another coach who is an athletic coach, and he's literally works with athletes who build themselves up so much as far as expectations to where they will make a small mistake, but critical enough to like make it so they can't work out for an entire week. Like just one small mistake. And I feel like I get to that sometimes. Like I feel like, wow, I expect so much. And if I make this one mistake, I'm crippled again. Now I'm trapped again. So
what is the judge protecting you from?
that is a great question. I never thought of it that way. I think the judge wants to protect me from the word the boring life came up. So that was kind of interesting. No, I think the judge simply wants to explore my full human potential, right? Again, going back to never being satisfied, what could you do? And that's the one thing I do like is I look at, great innovators, great scientific discoveries. It's so amazing that when you work at a certain mastery level, like you can come up with so many amazing things. But I think what it's protecting me from is an ordinary life, right? Like what would an extraordinary life be if you were to just keep going?
Yeah. The judge is there to protect you in your childhood, to make sure you don't get stagnant, to keep you moving forward, to keep you driven, keep you hungry. The problem with the judge and the saboteur, the other saboteurs, right? Because we know the judge is the master saboteur, is they're still with us in adulthood and we no longer need them. But they're always a part of your journey because they are a part of you and who you are and what you're made of.
Yeah.
What would you like to say to the judge when the judge shows up?
Honestly, that's a great point because I have to actually look back where I was when I was a child and where I am now. I got to make 6 figures in a job. I was able to lead 4 teams. I was able to build, this is like my 3rd business. So it's amazing that I've gotten this far. And it basically to look out like, who else is doing this and find out not many people do this at all. It's like, well, this is kind of weird. So again, that kind of plays into me like, oh, well, this is kind of normal, right? So if I can do it, anybody else could do it. Because again, I grew up in a cherry farm of a population of 1,500 people. Like there wasn't much to expect, right? But to go from that to where I am now, having lived in different states, having opportunities to work with big companies, work with teams, being in front of people on stages, it's been pretty incredible. So yeah, if I have to reflect back over my entire lifetime, I did not expect this at all. Like I'm well beyond what I expected.
Growing up on a cherry farm to now being on stages, starting your 3rd company, making 6 figures at one point, managing 4 teams, this constant thirst. Again, if you can't see this right now, listeners, Michael's got this amazing, colorful bookshelf behind him of all this knowledge, all this thirst, all this curiosity, and all these different ways to play and to experiment with your business on a journey to living an extraordinary life.
Yeah.
So the cage is here in front of us right now. Do you need to go around it or above it?
I need to go around it. I do understand that going through it, I think is just going to stop me from exploring. So I do like this idea that going around it and seeing from a different perspective, like as we both know, perspectives matters in life. So I need to spend today literally looking at where I'm at, literally from a different perspective. So, yeah.
You go around the cage.
Hi, everybody. We're taking a quick break to offer you an exciting opportunity
on the other side of the cage.
If you're a restaurant owner or manager looking to enhance your leadership skills, I invite you to join my 12-day leadership
I think
challenge.
on the other side, it's
In
kind of
just
cool
12 days,
that I can
you'll
envision
receive
this
a
already.
guided
On the other
packet
side
with
is
actionable
a
strategies to
group of
transform your
people
leadership
who
in
have
less
a
than
need. I
5 minutes a
see the
day.
people who I've already
Join the
helped
challenge and the
and building that
community
community.
and grab your copy
And
at
that is the reason why I built
kristenmarvin.com/12
Curiosity Center,
days.
was to actually
Now
have
let's
that
get back
community.
to the show.
Those who are struggling and meeting up with those who've actually gone through it. So yeah, on that other side is the community building that I want to build.
What's the path forward here for you?
You know, now that I'm on the other side, I'm going to use this analogy. It's no longer a cage that I'm in, but it does feel like an anchor that's still holding me back. So it's interesting that another time that we probably should have this conversation is how to get rid of the anchor. Because I feel like it's like we play this back and forth. Like all of a sudden I'm in the cage and then it becomes an anchor. And it's this literally back and forth. So it's interesting that this pattern keeps showing up every once in a while.
You're looking at the cage through the perspective of it's holding you back or trapping you. What's something you could do to shift your perspective on the cage?
The thing that actually came to mind, it's I turned it into a toy box and I put all of my bad toys in it. So it's kind of like one of those, hey, this used to serve you, but you want to like get rid of it and put it in this little toy box and put it away finally. So that's how it comes to mind. I think of it now, if it is a cage, it's a toy box with all of the beliefs I used to have that really don't serve me now.
And how did those beliefs help you get to where you're at today?
That is a good thing to remember. Is it was helpful. It got me to learn something else that was valuable. And so it's great to have as a reminder, like in a back corner somewhere, maybe in the garage, that it got me to here, but it itself wasn't the thing that got me here. So I know that was kind of vague. It's like it shone a light in a direction where I went down it, found out I didn't like it, turned around, and didn't want to go down that path anymore. So that's what I think of those. Is it was just a way to learn what isn't working. So
yeah, it sounds like the cage is holding some beliefs for you at a certain point in time. As a scientist, you are testing some hypotheses, right?
Yeah.
Seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, leaning into and learning from the ones that work, and then tossing the ones that don't into your toy box.
Yeah, and I was just watching this documentary last night. So funny that we got to this point. It was the conversation of confidence and that you actually don't make any wrong decisions. Like we have this judgment of ourselves. Oh, the right decision, the wrong decisions. The wrong decisions could be fatal, right? And it was this conversation that your confidence grows only when you have bad decisions, but it's not a bad decision. It's just something that worked for you, yet you wanted to try. It didn't work out, but now you know what one thing not to do anymore versus never knowing it even existed. So it's great to know that there really is no wrong decisions. You just tried something, it didn't work for you. You can try to find something else.
Who are you comparing yourself to?
Oh, goodness. When I started this journey, it really was, I believe, my parents' expectations of what I should be, right? It's kind of how it starts. I think now, having been where I am, I have looked at others through inspiration and aspiration. Like I'll use Richard Branson example. Like, and having read his books, it's kind of amazing that someone with dyslexia who really didn't know what he was doing other than he loved rock and roll have built this, Virgin Group company that does such amazing stuff. And again, he will self-admit, I am not the smartest person on the planet. I just like experimenting. So he has a book called Screw It, Let's Do It. I love that belief. Love it, love it, love it. So If anybody gets that book, please, like, you'll find it super amazing. But it's just, he didn't expect it to happen either. It just happened. But what he did want to do is serve customers in a much greater way. That's the goal of Virgin Group, actually, is better customer service. And look where it's taken them. So.
And you are wanting to serve people in a powerful way by helping them break free of their cages and think really creatively.
Yeah. And maybe what I'm pushing for me is that expectation of, if he could do it, I could do it, which is good. Again, aspiration. But what if I don't? Right? There's always that nagging person in the back of the head. It's like, oh, do you really belong there? Are you the right person? So, yeah.
What would life look like if you let go of the expectation?
It would be freeing, right? And I can look back and actually say, I've made a big impact on people's lives already. I have people who I worked with 8 years ago reach out to me saying, hey, remember when you taught me this thing? I use it still today. Like, that's amazing, right? So I think it would just be freeing that if I just let go of expectation and just be the best at who I can be, who knows where I could go, right? Now it's nice to have a goal, but who knows where this journey will take me.
Are you staying in contact with your former clients and coworkers?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you, if you haven't done this recently, to connect with them in a conversation. Maybe it's once a week, and ask them to highlight a moment that made an impact, where you made an impact in their life. And feel free to negotiate or counter.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I could easily do that.
What's, well, before we end, I will say, Michael, you, again, this story of growing up on a cherry farm, getting straight A's, working really hard, pushing yourself. Are you an only child?
No, I have one sister.
Okay. Building companies over and over and over, managing groups and groups of people, getting yourself in a position of making six figures, this constant thirst for knowledge and curiosity and experimentation. You're extraordinary. You're already living an extraordinary life. You are one of one, my friend. You are incredibly unique.
Thank you for that. I sometimes need that reminder and self-reflection. Yes.
What's your biggest takeaway from the conversation today?
The biggest takeaway actually was the analogy or the image of the sun, because that's brand new for me. Like I had mentioned, the cage and the anchor does seem to be a pattern that does show up. But now looking at light, looking at the sunrise, sunset, the peak moment, that was the greatest takeaway. Is I don't have to be always on. When I reach that peak, that's when I'm at my greatest, and just know, like, sunsets, sunrises, so it's a nice circle. So yeah.
Is there a way that you can capture that peak every day?
What I want to do is I'm going to try to do this. Get a video, obviously, like where I am, I'm over by Mount Lemmon and Rincon Mountain. So when the sun rises, I really want to be at a point where I can do like the fast motion or the time lapse video of a sunrise, just as a reminder, just to put on my monitor, just like, this is how I'm going to start my day, and obviously swing around during the evening and then watch the sunset, do that same thing. Because I think that would just help me to let go of that always on. Is when you wake up, you're not going to be 100%. And definitely when it's sunset, you're not going to be 100%. But how well you can take care of that during the time of sunrise, peak, sunset would be amazing. It's just a reminder, actually.
I love that. Will you share that photo with me or that video?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. I love it. Can't wait to see it. Michael, thank you so much for this time. Really, really appreciate you diving in and playing around with some different fun metaphors.
I appreciate your perspectives on this and help me look at it from a different way and coming up with a new strategy of how this cage anchor kind of works for me right now. So yeah.
It's so interesting in coaching that so often the tools that we use for our clients are the tools that we need to use on ourselves, right? So that's all I was doing with you today. You were throwing out everything you're doing, all the science, all the methodology that you're using with your clients, just taking a second, turning that mirror to you and having you reflect on where you're at, because we don't do that very often or often enough for ourselves.
And it's so interesting that, again, you and I both know, as a coach, we have our own blind spots, and it's so easy to just like miss it. And so when you helped me walk through, what was it like? What does it mean? What's it look like on the other side? It's like, oh yeah, I should be asking these myself. So, but it's great to see something that you see, because again, I have that weird blind spot every once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much for your time. Cannot wait for that video. And can't wait to continue to follow your journey in town. You've been just a tremendous, you've made a huge impact on me. Since we've met, you've just been so giving and supportive. And I'm grateful for you. And that's your highlight today. You don't have to call me and, to hear that. But I just am really grateful and can't thank you enough for showing up today the way that you did. So. Thank you. All right, everybody. All right. That's going to do it for us. Please share this episode with anyone that you know that could benefit, and we will talk to you soon.